Hello everyone, I'm bringing you a video today which forms something of a follow-up to the video I made recently looking at 1937 pattern basic pouches. What we're having a look at here are British Second War era utility pouches. These are somewhat larger than the basic pouches and were designed to carry greater volumes of ammunition in that regard. And we're going to talk about how these were carried, how they were supposed to be carried and how they were actually carried, what could be carried in them. Again, I thought it might be another useful video, a follow-on from that video looking at basic pouches and how ammunition was carried in those. So hopefully it will be interesting, and that's what we're going to get into in some detail now. So here we have the utility pouches. I've had these for a very, very long time. They were a pretty early purchase when I was starting to collect Second War British kit, and I'm glad I picked them up when I did. It's nice to have a proper set of these. They are, well, it's not a matched set in terms of dates and so forth, but it doesn't matter to me. As you can see, in basically unused condition. And these weren't typically blancoed, so nice to have a set in such good condition. And obviously what we're going to talk about primarily in this video is what was carried in these. We've looked at the basic pouches in the previous video, talking about how ammunition was typically carried in those and the versatility of them. The utility pouches, sometimes referred to as auxiliary pouches by collectors, I've also seen them referred to as Bren pouches, the official term is utility pouches, are very much that. They are designed to carry a variety of different types of ammunition. They can carry Bren gun magazines, most commonly, that's probably the thing that's most commonly associated with them rather, is Bren gun magazines. Each of these will contain 3, and you can see here we have 3 Bren magazines in there. As with the basic pouches video, the ammunition inside the magazines there is all inert, of course, just to make that comment here. They will, of course, carry other ammunition in different forms, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more in just a minute. Talk about these, first of all, the pouch here, which is the rear pouch, and we'll talk more about that as well in just a minute. This is the rear pouch, dated 1941 and manufactured by Mills Equipment Company, as you can see there. The yoke, the strap that goes around the neck, is dated 1939, as you can see there, MECO 1939, and then the pouch on this side, the front pouch, is dated 1940 there, as you can see. So a mismatched set, but that doesn't really matter to me, as I say, just nice to have a set in this nice clean condition. The pouches, the very earliest forms of these, manufactured I think early 1938, had ballastite loops in the lid, as you see with early 1937 pattern basic pouches, but they're deleted from the design pretty early on, and you just get these plain pouches, the plain lid there, nothing else inside. The ballastite loops are loops for ballastite blanks, which are found on some of the very earliest production of these, but disappeared from the design pretty quickly. In theory, these were to be worn front and rear, and the front pouch would be worn on the front left shoulder, and the other pouch would be round on the right rear shoulder, but obviously keeps the right shoulder clear for bringing the rifle stock up to the shoulder in order to aim and fire effectively. The front pouch has the strap stitched onto the rear here, as you can see, which passes around the body, around the chest, to secure these to the body, and the rear pouch has a slot which that passes through, as you can see here, a webbing loop that passes through at the base here. That's how they're supposed to be carried according to the fitting instructions, but in actual use they were often just slung around the neck. Typical use, or probably the most common use, we've already mentioned Bren gun magazines as being probably what people consider the most common load for these. Most common use, or one of the most common uses for these, was in the rifle section in the Bren group, for carrying extra Bren magazines for the Bren, of course, because you only have a limited capacity in the basic pouches, and these are an excellent way of carrying more ammunition in that regard. Another thing to mention with these very briefly here, they are not originally part of the 1937 pattern equipment, although they are associated with it. It's only after the Second World War that they're actually patterned as part of the 1937 pattern equipment, and that happened with quite a few different bits and pieces of web equipment that were introduced around the same time as the 1937 pattern equipment, weren't actually patterned as part of it, but then post-war they were repatterned, or they were first patterned as part of the equipment in the post-war years, in the 1950s typically, and that's true of the utility pouches. Not originally part of 1937 pattern, later patterned as part of it post Second World War. So as you can see from the rear pouch here, which is the one I've loaded with magazines, nice easy fit for 3 Bren gun magazines in there. Another thing that was quite commonly carried in these were 2-inch mortar bombs, and we have an example of one of those here. Again, completely inert, of course. I think this is actually a training round. And you could easily carry a couple of 2-inch mortar bombs in these. They'd fit in there quite nicely. You could, of course, carry grenades in these as well, if required. You can carry all sorts of different bits and pieces in them if so required, but this is a typical sort of thing that was carried in these. Is Bren gun magazines, 2-inch mortar bombs. Something that was noted on Khaki Web, which I had not previously considered. These will actually contain a British enamel water bottle. This pattern of enamel water bottle will fit in these as well. It's not made clear on Khaki Web if this is sort of an intended part of the design, but it is true. These utility pouches will carry the water bottle, as you can see here. A little bit difficult to get it back out again because of the friction of the felt on the webbing, but the water bottles do fit in there as well. So if required, carrying extra water, you could put a couple of water bottles in a set of pouches and carry extra water in that way if required. As I say, it's just something that was noted on Khaki Web that I decided I'd try out. I've not noted it as something that could be done previously, and indeed it does fit, but Khaki Web doesn't make clear if that's, as I say, an intended part of the design of these, or just a happy accident, I suppose you could say. So that's a quick look at the utility pouches, primarily focusing on what they could carry and what they were used to carry. They are, as I say, utility pouches designed to carry various different types of ammunition, particularly for the infantry, particularly sort of centered around the infantry, the 2-inch mortar, the Bren gun, and so forth, as I say, and give that extra ammunition capacity above and beyond the 1937 pattern Web equipment. So I hope you found it interesting looking at these and talking a little bit about what these were used to carry. Obviously, carrying an extra load for any soldier, I'm sure, is not popular, but with these, the wide strap over the shoulder and so forth, there was some thought about distribution of weight, and obviously distribution of weight in terms of the intended idea of having one to the front and one to the rear, and then the strap supporting them around the chest and keeping them secure around the chest as well. Obviously, they were not generally carried in that way. You tend to see in photographs of the time and footage of the time, they were just slung around the neck. So probably a little bit less comfortable in that regard, but you can get at both pouches that way, of course, from the front. So as I say, I hope you found it interesting looking at these. I think we've covered them in some detail here, and hopefully that has been of interest. If you have found this interesting and you'd like to see more of this sort of thing, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And whether you're newly subscribing or previously subscribed, please do make sure you hit the notification bell down below. That will of course alert you when I upload future videos. If you really like my uploads and you would like to support the channel, you can. Both Patreon and PayPal are linked down below. And as I always say, a huge thank you to everybody who supports the channel using those methods. It really is greatly appreciated. Thank you all very much indeed. If you'd like to follow the channel on social media, you can. Facebook, Instagram and Twitter are all linked down below. And if you'd like to get in touch with me but you don't really use social media, there is of course an email address in the description as well. That's everything for this video. So until next time, bye for now. We're just going to have a little visit from the cat here. Here we are. Come on, Apollo, I'm trying to make a video here. Yep, there we go.